Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics, They're Bad For You. Or if you're watching this on my BitChute channel, Comic Freak. Today we're going to be reviewing Swamp Thing Episode 6, The Price You Pay. Now, this episode starts the part of the series where apparently the creators at DC Universe decided to make this less of a horror series and more of a police procedural. We start out with Alec Holland, still in his Swamp Thing form, out in the swamp. He is still, dealing with the fact that he's been transformed into a monster, and he's basically being the sorry sad sack that he's turned into for most of the series. That's when Alec hears something. He's wondering what's going on. He thinks someone's entered his swamp. That's when he gets attacked by two hunters. The two hunters are quickly overwhelmed by Swamp Thing, and he uses the trees to throw wooden spikes at them. One of them getting seriously hurt in the face. The other one only in the leg. And guess which one got only minorly hurt? One of the hunters was female, and she was the one who was minorly hurt in the leg. Well, the other guy got it in the face. Now we switch over to Ian Ziering playing Daniel Cassidy, also known as Blue Devil. We're taken back to the time where he was in Marias, Louisiana, where he was filming as a movie as the stunt double of the main star of the movie that was of the same character he's going to be turned into, the Blue Devil. I guess the powers that be in the DC universe think that if you play a fictional character and you get mixed up in magic, they find it funny to turn you actually into that fictional character. And he makes a deal with that man who showed up in the last episode, as I've said before, the Phantom Stranger. Now here, he even wears this Phantom Stranger's outfit, his suit. And he makes a deal with Daniel, saying that he'll help him get the part of the main role in the Blue Devil movie if he does a little deal for him. Daniel Cassidy, not knowing that he'll be stuck here for the next 8 years waiting for Abby Arcane to come back to Marias, Louisiana. And that if he were try to leave, he'll be burned by blue flames, which is symbolic of what's going to happen to him. Well, Daniel makes a deal with the stranger, who we know as the Phantom Stranger, and he gets the part as the hero in the Blue Devil movie. I wonder if this was the Phantom Stranger's idea to actually transform Daniel into the Blue Devil 8 years later. It's sort of dumb. Now, what happens later on is that Abby Arcane confronts her surrogate father figure, Avery Sunderland, who's played by Will Patton. Now, she accuses him of sending out the two thugs to beat up her friend, who's a reporter, who ended up nearly killing Daniel Cassidy and sending him into a coma. And he denies it at first, and he keeps denying it, but he pretty much says, or he pretty much makes her feel that if she keeps pushing things, he wouldn't really hesitate to actually hurt her. And you can see kind of hurt in her eyes when she ends up beginning to realize he really would hurt her over something like this. And she understands that it's a big crime, but she never thought he would actually go that far. Because you can see it in her that she realizes he could end up killing her over this. Later on, Jason Woodrue continues to look at the sample he got of Swamp Thing, and he begins to come up with an idea. He begins to synthesize it, and he makes a serum. He hopes this serum will be able to cure his wife of her early onset Alzheimer's. And he thinks of something. He needs to test it. He's not just going to test it out on his wife. So he begins to look for suitable subjects who have had some level of brain damage, or subjects who are also suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, something that is affecting their minds, making them unable to live normal lives, or, which will eventually take their lives as well. Because not only is he worried about losing his wife physically with her mind, he's also worried about her because The final stages of Alzheimer's always result in death. So he's busy looking for a subject. And he finds Daniel Cassidy, and he injects him with it. Only the serum, not only does it begin to cure him, it also makes those blue flames that burned him in a few episodes earlier, it makes them start acting up. It starts making his body hotter. In fact, it's surprising that no one notices that his body is turning blue, as well as glowing. Now, Abby's friend, the reporter, she comes to see him, and she touches him, and she realizes he's burning up. In fact, she suffers a minor burn from him as well. He gets up, and he starts acting all like he's high, because the serum is inside him. It's burning his body. He says he has to go. There's something he has to do. He has to see Abby Arcane, as well as make sure he fulfills his promise to the Phantom Stranger. And as he gets out of there, the reporter asks him, "You should stay. You're still sick. You're practically burning up." But he doesn't listen to her, and he leaves. Now, the sheriff and her son, Matt Cable, they begin to talk. Now, she confronts her son about what he did to Alec Holland, and he does admit that he killed Alec because he wanted to make sure that she was all right, because Avery Sunderland not only had her for various crimes where she's actually killed someone, but she's actually taken bribes, as well as, made it easier for Avery Sunderland to dump toxic waste and other chemicals in the swamp. He tells her he knows that she's the reason his life is ruined, because he wanted to protect her. It's not my fault that you ruined your life and you've dragged me down with you. Well, that's basically what I get from their conversation. And she says, "Leave, just leave. I don't want to see you in this town anymore." And he says, "Fine, that's good." Later on, Matt Cable and Abby Arcane end up Matt Cable is basically freaked out when he sees Swamp Thing, and he learns to his horror that this was actually Alec Holland. Now, he doesn't look all that relieved that Alec Holland is alive, but he is glad that Alec can't figure out that he was the one who shot him. Well, you should be glad. You're not a murderer, but you have destroyed Alec Holland's life, Matt. Now, Alec, he doesn't recognize Matt, and he tells him, "You were there. You were there when Abby Arcane took that little girl out of the swamp." And Matt, of course, agrees, and he just hopes that Alec doesn't recognize anything more of him. He's immensely glad it was a dark night, the night he shot Swamp Thing out in the swamp, causing the transformation into the beast, into the creature that protects the swamp. Later on, Daniel Cassidy confronts Jason Woodrue, and he tells him, "You did this to me. I'm burning up. You've got to stop this." And you can see his body is beginning to literally burn with blue flames under his skin, and steam begins rising from his body. Avery Sunderland comes to Jason Woodrue's house, and he tells Daniel to leave it alone, stop this, or I will shoot you. Well, Jason Woodrue basically hits Daniel with a sedative. And he tells Avery Sunderland, your fears are unfounded. These are just a bunch of side effects. While Avery says, the guy was practically burning up and going mad with pain. You call this a cure? And Jason tells him that with a little more work, this will be accomplished. This serum will work. Trust me. Later on, Swamp Thing talks to Abby Arcane, and they have a conversation. And he just wishes he could go back to normal. And what happens? He suddenly sprouts this weird flower. And the flower releases this pollen. And then for some odd reason, Swamp Thing reverts back to Alec Holland. And Abby Arcane says it's happy she's able to see him again. And this is where the episode ends. The episode is different from the other episodes because it's the first episode that has less to do with horror. And there was no horror in it. And more to do with with the relationship with the crimes the individual characters have committed and what they've done. As he said, this is more or less a police procedural now. What with Matt Cable being a criminal and his mother, the sheriff, being an even worse criminal. So, it was good, but it's nowhere near as good as the other horror episodes, and I really hate what they've done. Now, this episode was decent, and that's all I can really say. I'm not happy with where they're going now. It should have just remained a horror series. Now, if you like this review, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you have not subscribed, please subscribe to me. Hit that bell for notifications and hit that like button and leave some comments down below. I also want you to keep checking back in future videos for more information on my own upcoming independent comic book, Scumdogs. I also want you all to subscribe to me at BitChute at Comic Freak. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again with another video or review.